Call now.
You're watching Channel 5.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the Democratic ticket. Conventional wisdom was right for a change. Senator Albert Gore of Tennessee will run with Governor Clinton this year. Neighbors from the South, two men in their 40s, a new generation, said Senator Gore today. Two men who believe the Democratic Party has been too liberal in recent years to have a decent shot at recapturing the White House. For Governor Clinton, it was clearly a choice aimed at following the first rule of choosing a running mate: do no harm. Here's ABC's Chris Bury.
At high noon on a hot, muggy Arkansas day, Governor Clinton, his running mate, and their families made their grand appearance from the governor's mansion. Clinton introduced his choice as the Democrat most qualified to be a heartbeat away from the presidency.
The man standing beside me today has what it takes to lead this nation from the day we take office. Senator Al Gore of Tennessee.
In Gore, Clinton chose a well-known senator already tested by his 1988 run for president when he and his record were thoroughly scrutinized. Gore adds credentials Clinton lacks with his Senate expertise in foreign policy, arms control, and most notably the environment, a subject on which Gore is a best-selling author.
He has asked me to join in his commitment to preserve not only the environment of America, but to preserve the environment of our globe for future generations. And together, we will finally give the United States a real environmental presidency.
Gore was also chosen for his youth. He is 44, a year younger than the governor. Today, in a theme they plan to pound, the youngest Democratic ticket in decades made a case for a generational change in power.
That time has come again. The time for a new generation of leadership for the United States of America.
Clinton also picked Gore for the partisan punches he can deliver against Vice President Quayle. Today, Gore, a father of four, responded to Quayle's debate on family values, noting the White House talked about them, but vetoed legislation allowing family leave.
The Clinton-Gore ticket is the pro-family ticket in this race and will be the pro-family administration.
The choice of Gore, it seems, is safer than it is bold. But after the painful start to Clinton's campaign, the safe selection may have been the smart one. Chris Bury, ABC News, Little Rock.
Well, for Senator Gore, politics is very much a family business. His father was a politician, first in the House and then the Senate from 1939 to 1971. He was almost a running mate himself for John F. Kennedy in 1960. ABC's Jim Wooten tonight on the Gores, from senior to junior.
I come from Carthage, Tennessee.
Even now, in that small town, they're known as Big Al and Little Al, as though the father were still a patrician senator, the son still a boy tagging along. But Albert Gore Jr. long ago stepped out of his father's shadow and into a political career driven by the dream of most public men, the presidency.
I'm running to win, and I want your help. Thank you. Thank you.
In 1988, his presidential campaign failed. His reach was far beyond his grasp, but his White House dream survived. Big as ever, he told an old friend last month. As a campaigner, he's more diligent than dramatic. As a legislator, more focused than most colleagues on futuristic issues, with sufficient expertise to be occasionally boring. Unlike most Democrats, he voted for the Gulf War, then mended his fences by defending those who opposed it.
Dissent is not only honorable and to be respected, it's part of the strength of this nation.
Still, he's more respected than liked in the Senate. His diligence is often perceived as dullness, his ambition as unseemly, though it would also seem inevitable. With his father in the Senate, he was born not far from the White House, lived in this downtown hotel, not far from the White House, attended this private boys' school, not far from the White House. Yet despite his Washington roots, it was clear today that Senator Gore, like Governor Clinton, will run this fall as a pure outsider, just a small-town boy from the rural South. Jim Wooten, ABC News, New York.
One of the most notable features of the Clinton campaign for the presidency has been the role played by Mrs. Clinton. And so it was inevitable that when Senator Gore was chosen, and because Senator Gore's own wife is no stranger to politics, that she would get some early scrutiny. Here's ABC's Jackie Judd.
Within hours of the announcement, the candidates' wives struck out on their own, visiting a hospital for sick children. The last time Tipper Gore was in the national spotlight involved children as well. Back in 1985, she says she became horrified at the rock songs her teenage daughter was listening to, so launched a controversial campaign.
We are asking the recording industry to voluntarily assist parents who are concerned by placing a warning label on music products inappropriate for younger children due to explicit sexual or violent lyrics.
Critics called Gore a censor and a prude. Others say she was misunderstood. Tipper Gore later said the high-profile crusade allowed her to step outside her husband's shadow, but she avoided the limelight during his '88 presidential campaign. She told an interviewer that she had perhaps created an awkward situation for him. Unlike lawyer Hillary Clinton, who has worked all of her life and at one time seemed dismissive of homemakers, Gore abandoned plans to become a child psychologist. Her priority became her husband and her 4 children. And for the Clinton campaign, that may be the most appealing thing about her. In a year when the Republicans are trying to lay claim to the family values issue, Tipper Gore, wife and mother, may be the Democrats' perfect weapon. Jackie Judd, ABC News, Little Rock.
Another snapshot tonight of where the presidential race stands now, or at least stood just before the Senator Gore was chosen. Still pretty much a three-way tie. Our latest poll shows President Bush at 35%, Bill Clinton and Ross Perot both at 30%. All those statistics are within the margin of error, so it is a statistical dead heat. Another note about Mr. Perot, 1/5 of the people who say they support him now tell us they'll probably wind up voting for Mr. Clinton or Mr. Bush in the fall. In a moment, today's other news. Bosnia gets sympathy from President Bush, but no U.S. ground troops. Anger in America over the lack of accountability for a high-speed car chase that ends in death. And on the American agenda tonight, an idea that could save endangered species and jobs.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Tylenol.
2 a.m., 36 Pine Street. Apartment 4C has a backache and can't sleep. 3C overdid her afternoon workout and is paying the price. 2C had an aching back, but fortunately, she also has Tylenol PM, with extra-strength Tylenol pain reliever, plus a gentle ingredient to help her sleep. And a good night's sleep was all she needed to make her day a whole lot brighter. Tylenol PM, so you can rest easy.
Introducing the new Jeep. With an all-new four-wheel drive system and exclusive standard driver's side airbag. No other vehicle gives you so much latitude.
Another attempt today to put some pressure on Serbia. In the Belgian capital, Brussels, the NATO ambassadors have voted to send 8 warships to the coast of what was Yugoslavia in the Adriatic Sea, ostensibly to monitor the international trade sanctions against Serbia. The warships will not be authorized to shoot at any other ships that might try to sneak goods through to the Serbians. In Finland today, the war in Bosnia-Herzegovina was the central subject of the meeting of the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe. ABC's Britt Hume is in Helsinki.
The President and his Secretary of State had 2 clear missions here. First, they would not repeat the leadership role they played in the war over oil-rich Kuwait to end the bloodshed in Yugoslavia, where U.S. interests are much less clear. But an operation like Desert Storm is exactly what the president of beleaguered Bosnia, who met with President Bush here today, wants him or someone to mount, and said as much.
Do you want peacekeeping forces in Bosnia?
Peacemaking forces.
The president made no response to that, but U.S. officials indicated later the American role would not go beyond air and naval support for humanitarian relief efforts and for enforcing UN sanctions on Serbia. In other words, no U.S. ground troops for peacekeeping or peacemaking. But as Mr. Bush was keenly aware, this 50-nation conference is also about what to do in the event of future Yugoslavias, how to prevent them, and whose forces will step in when they cannot be prevented.
In his speech here this afternoon, Mr. Bush urged that NATO, which the U.S. dominates, now be used by the group of nations gathered here as a European peacekeeping force.
We've learned that Europe's problems are America's problems, her hopes and aspirations, ours as well.
That's another way of saying that despite the end of the Cold War, the U.S. retains an interest in Europe and doesn't want to see its influence, which NATO represents, diminished here. As for Yugoslavia, well, nobody else here seems ready to commit their ground forces to ending that war either. Britt Hume, ABC News, Helsinki.
The French government did say today that it is sending a number of attack helicopters and several hundred troops to help UN peacekeepers protect the Sarajevo airport. There is a constant threat there from Serbian fighters. ABC's Sheila McVicker left the airport today and made the dangerous trip into territory controlled by the Serbs. She wanted their view of the war.
This is what the international relief effort looks like from the Serbian vantage point. Relief planes lumbering into the sky over their heads. Ilija is just 4 miles from Sarajevo. It's one of the headquarters of the Serbs who have the city under siege. This is as far as United Nations peacekeepers can go. On the Serbian side of this war, every man over 18 is obliged to be a fighter. They have many fighters and many guns. Snipers check their weapons. This town is a military garrison. Even women wear camouflage. On the trees, death notices tell of casualties. Serbian military leaders say they are fighting a war of religions, of Christians against Muslims, in a kind of 20th century crusade. The Serb commander of Ilija is Tomo Kovac. What the Bosnian government is trying to do, he says, is create an Islamic state here in Europe. We know, we Serbs have been fighting Muslims for 500 years. So to refight the battles of long ago, the Serbs move and position their guns by day. By night, the Serbs light up blacked-out Sarajevo as they fire into the city's hills. Last night, the UN says the Bosnians fired first. Serb guns answered, and round after round fell on the city. Some of the Serb fighters say they have simply been caught up in politics. 2 months ago, Mladen Krstić was an engineering student in Sarajevo with a Muslim girlfriend. I hope I still have friends in Sarajevo, he says. For them, I am probably an enemy now. This is the end of civilization, he told us. And then he waved and returned to the war. Sheila McVicker, ABC News, Ilija.
On the news today, a majority in the House Judiciary Committee, all Democrats, voted to ask the Attorney General to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate the Bush administration's dealings with Iraq before the Gulf War. They want to establish what the administration knew about Saddam Hussein's secret weapons purchases and whether Bush administration officials illegally attempted to conceal their Iraqi policy from the Congress. In a moment, some anger over high-speed car chases and a government agency that doesn't seem to care. People die.
Morning breath.
As soon as I have my coffee, it's all gone.
Whether you admit it or not, it's a problem.
Okay, I have morning breath, but it doesn't bother anyone.
Don't be so sure.
Mine's not so bad.
Morning breath's not as bad as you think. It's worse. So get Scope. Its 2 powerful ingredients kill 90% of the bacteria that cause morning breath.
Was my morning breath really that bad?
There's no denying morning breath, so save your breath with Scope.
To get rid of her gray, my wife can spend 40 minutes. But I discovered this 5-minute hair coloring.
The revolutionary discovery called Just for Men from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men and in 5 minutes shampoo out.
Gray is blended away. The look of my natural color is back in 5 minutes. That was me, and it won't fade or wash out.
My hair takes forever, but you look great in just 5 minutes.
The look of your natural color in just 5 minutes with Just for Men.
Introducing the new Ford Taurus and the button. The new Taurus now offers remote radio controls, express down power windows, and better night visibility. Because when it comes to convenience, we push all the right buttons.
When was the last time you had an irresistible hot fudge sundae? Or a fantabulous banana split? Pick any of our 30 wonderful flavors, and don't forget the nuts. Oh, come on, get that 30 wonderful feeling.
Another example tonight of what makes a lot of people angry with their government. In so many cases, people are convinced they cannot get public officials to pay attention. Last month, immigration agents were chasing a truck full of illegal aliens at very high speed through the small California town of Temecula. Before the chase was over, there was carnage in the streets. 6 people were dead. What makes the people in Temecula so angry is that immigration agents had already been involved in one fatal chase through their town, and they just knew it was going to happen again. Here's ABC's Brian Rooney.
The accident ripped this car to pieces, killing a father, his son, and a friend on their way to Temecula High School. Then the truck full of aliens, pursued by the Border Patrol, continued through the intersection, killing a brother and sister on the sidewalk and a man in the truck who died later. The town's grief turned to anger, not only about the accident, but about the refusal of the Immigration Service to stop chasing people through town. The accident was the subject of a heated meeting at City Hall. No one from the Border Patrol came to the meeting.
The Border Patrol has not accepted responsibility for the accident or even apologized directly to the families of the dead. Some people around here say the Border Patrol behaves as though it does not have to account for what it does.
The family of the dead brother and sister just feels the government does not care.
Overall, in general, as far as the government, no, I just feel we've been abandoned and betrayed. I feel betrayed.
In recent years, the Border Patrol's chases through Temecula have resulted in a total of 8 deaths and 12 injuries. The Border Patrol's investigation of this latest accident concluded that their agents did nothing wrong. But critics here say the agency that protects the border has forgotten the people it serves.
It's their non-accountability. It's their lack of respect for us, the citizens of Temecula, and the citizens of
wherever.
Citizens of the country.
The way they drive, their antics on the freeway, on the city streets, it's like they don't have any regard for anybody else but catching the illegal alien.
One lawsuit to stop the high-speed chases has already failed, but people in Temecula say they will press on in court and through Congress in the hope that someone in the federal government will eventually listen. Brian Rooney, ABC News, Temecula, California.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials gained nearly 31 points to close at 33.24. The trading was heavy. 14 days after it took off, the Space Shuttle Columbia landed this morning at Cape Canaveral. 14 days in orbit, 1 day longer than planned because of rain at the primary landing site in California. Scientists believe they've discovered a gene that influences learning. The researchers found that laboratory mice with the learning gene were able to learn how to solve a maze. The ones without the gene couldn't solve it. The scientists say the same gene exists in humans as well as mice. When we come back, the American agenda. How can America preserve its endangered species and also save jobs?
I couldn't sleep at all last night. I was tossing and turning all night.
Can't sleep? Try Unisom. In medical tests, people fell asleep faster and slept better with Unisom than without.
Now I'm sleeping and sleeping all night.
Take Unisom for faster, better sleep. Or when you have pain and also can't sleep, take Unisom with pain relief.
People love the old type of granola, but didn't know it was loaded with fat. Introducing new Kellogg's low-fat granola. Lots of delicious whole grains, almonds, and raisins, but only half the fat of leading granolas. New Kellogg's low-fat granola. Great taste, half the fat.
A late-night snack, and no bag keeps it fresher than Ziploc brand storage bags with the gripper zipper. Tough, tiny teeth you can feel gripping, so you know freshness is locked in.
Honey.
Caught red-handed. There's only one Ziploc.
So you just got a cash advance, did you? Too bad you used an ordinary credit card. Because you could be carrying some very heavy interest charges. Why not carry the Discover card? Just pay your full monthly balance and a small transaction fee, and we'll forget the interest. Which means our money comes with no strings attached. It pays to Discover.
Our competition uses a very sophisticated, state-of-the-art
highly precise device to measure their cars. Our car, the Accord from Honda.
On the American agenda tonight, a new approach to saving endangered species. The way the system works now, when the federal government concludes that an animal is in danger of becoming extinct, the government is supposed to do whatever it takes to save the habitat in which the particular species lives or on which it depends, which, as we have seen in several sections of the country, has led to one battle after another with those people who make their living exploiting that particular habitat. So is there a way to protect jobs and an even wider variety of species at the same time? Our agenda reporter is Barry Seraphin.
Over the last 20 years, the Endangered Species Act has produced some success stories. The number of bald eagles, for example, has increased dramatically. And there have been some failures. It did not save the dusky seaside sparrow, which was declared extinct last year.
Hey, ESI, please don't take our jobs away!
The act has also produced bitter controversy, especially in the Pacific Northwest over the spotted owl. Now, more and more scientists, like University of Wisconsin botanist Don Waller, are calling for a new approach.
The Endangered Species Act kicks in too late, and it's too expensive in many instances. It's the intensive care ward for species right on the brink of extinction. Our proposal attempts to do preventative medicine.
What Waller and some of his fellow scientists are proposing is a change in the way that national forests are managed, starting with 2 forests in Wisconsin. They want to protect all of the species here, from birds to bugs, flowers to fungi to frogs, before they become endangered. In other words, they want to preserve what is called the forest's biological diversity.
It builds into the whole plan, the whole design, the protection of diversity, rather than trying to salvage bits of it when it's almost too late.
Inside the boundaries of the national forests, large so-called diversity maintenance areas, like the one shown here in the Nicolet National Forest in Wisconsin, would be carved out and protected. The public would still be able to use those areas for camping, fishing, and other recreational activities. But new road construction and logging would be banned.
We are suggesting that the forest be zoned into log zones and non-log zones, giving about 80% of the forest to the loggers, which I think is disproportionately fair.
To protect jobs, the plan would permit more intensive tree cutting outside of the non-logging zones. The Forest Service opposes that. Officials do not want to set a precedent in which some areas would be off-limits to logging, and they insist they can protect biodiversity while spreading selective cutting across all of the forest.
And in my opinion, it would be preferable to manage the entire national forest with ecological sensitivity.
But the scientists on the other side say that to protect species, dense stands of old trees must be created by leaving large areas unlogged. So they have taken the Forest Service to court. Walter Coleman is their attorney.
Biologically, you're almost worse off to have a quilt of little cuts scattered all around than you are to have the logging over here and some of the reserved areas elsewhere.
Critics of the Forest Service have found additional ammunition in a report prepared for Congress by the Office of Technology Assessment. When it comes to monitoring biological diversity, the report says, the Forest Service lacks adequate data, guidelines, training, and expertise. The Forest Service concedes that it has been slow to incorporate biodiversity into its management plans and says it does see value in taking a broader approach, not only to avoid threats to species, but to avoid battles pitting species against jobs.
A single species approach to managing these situations increases the amount of conflict. If we continue to manage for those particular species in isolation of the thinking about the overall health and function and composition of ecosystems, we're missing a bet.
The Wisconsin case will not settle all of the arguments over production versus preservation in our national forests, but it could more firmly establish the protection of biodiversity, the whole tapestry of life, as an idea whose time has come. Barry Seraphin, ABC News, Minocqua, Wisconsin.
We'll be back in just a minute.
When I go on vacation, I love going out at night to shows, dancing the night away, enjoying great nightclub entertainment. And on this vacation, I can enjoy everything without cover charges, minimums, or even reservations, because it's all included. But what I really like about the nightlife here is that tomorrow night, I can see another great new show as we sail away to another great new place. Take a 3, 4, 7-day fun ship vacation on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
Think about your daydreams and what you would do if you won $1 million. Out of miracles can happen for you. Publishers Clearinghouse, the house where dreams come true.
Don't miss our special 25th anniversary $25 million sweepstakes. It's a one-time only celebration, and it's in the mail now.
Ace Best Buys are terrific values every month, like these.
Control pests with Ace insect sprays and home fogger for just $1.97 each. And Ace 32-gallon trash cans are only $8.97 each.
Ace Best Buys.
Another reason Ace is the place.
For you.
Suddenly, vitamins are all over the news.
And 2 out of 3 adults don't get all that's recommended in their diets.
The good news is Total has 100% of 10 essential vitamins.
With all the vitamin news, I'm eating Total.
What's happened to these televangelists since Primetime exposed the way they get money and live like kings? New information on our investigation. Primetime tonight.
Finally this evening, one of America's great contributors to broadcast journalism has died. Eric Sevareid spent nearly 40 years at CBS News reporting on the state of the nation and the state of the world. In 1939, Europe was on the verge of war, and Eric Sevareid was a young reporter working in Paris when he got an invitation from Edward R. Murrow to become one of Murrow's boys working for CBS Radio News. During his first combat assignment, Sevareid scored a major scoop. Traveling with the French army, he broadcast to the world on a borrowed shortwave radio the news that France was about to surrender to the Nazis.
I do not think there is any deliberate attempt to hide the real state of affairs from the people of Paris.
Only the soldier really lives the war, the journalist does not, Sevareid wrote. War happens inside a man. That can never be communicated.
How does it look to you, Sevareid?
After the war, television found Eric Sevareid. His first assignment was the 1948 presidential campaign.
Here lived the British, on a dripping wet island in the North Atlantic.
Viewers quickly took to his articulate use of language and his wit.
Here is their channel moat, a one-way passage for armies from here to there. Only Caesar and William the Norman made it from there to here.
Sevareid would remain a mainstay at CBS News for the next 30 years.
Vietnam, I think myself, is not to be compared with Korea or...
He contributed regular commentary to the evening news broadcast on just about anything. One critic called him CBS's commentator in charge of significance.
This was Eric Sevareid in Washington. Thank you and goodbye.
He died of cancer. He was 79. And that's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Thursday, they grew up on the same city streets. A star athlete who turned to the mob.
You handled yourself well today.
And a street punk who turned to the law.
I'm going to join the department.
2 lives headed on a collision course in 2 new drama specials. Jumpin' Joe and Crow's Nest, Thursday at 9, 8 Central.
Amazing Blue Star ointment stops itching fast. Jock itch, ringworm, tetter, relieves athlete's foot. Blue Star ointment, the one that's guaranteed. Ask for it.
I was out of a job. Now I've got a whole new career.
As a single parent, I needed a better job fast.
Career training gave me the skills to get a great job.
They went to the National Education Center, and so can you. If you'd like a career in electronics, pick up the phone and call NEC for this brochure. Training's not hard and takes less time than you think.
For a brochure, call 1-800-722-7337. 1-800-722-7337. Call now.
Channel 5 and Sharp's non-alcoholic brew. Want to test your knowledge of Cheers? Play Cheers Trivia each weeknight on Channel 5. During Channel 5 news at 5 and 10, watch for the...